This is Underdog Portfolio Weekly, hosted by Scott Connor.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another Underdog Portfolio Weekly. It is me, Scott Connor at Charles Chill FFB. Welcome back for Bestball Mania 5 live draft number 2. I will be entering it here in just a second. So if you want to get in the draft, I'm not going to recommend anybody in here draft against me, but Ray and I did one the other night on Destination Chill, and it was fun. Wasn't sure if anybody that was in there was drafting against us, but we drafted against each other and was awesome. So we're back for another one. It's going to be me flying solo. There's going to be a recorded show next week. And then after that, I think all of the drafts are going to be with a guest. So I'll have somebody on here to talk to while I'm doing the drafting. But it's just going to be me solo tonight. We had some kinks to work out last time. But I'm going to go ahead and fire up the screen. While we're waiting, I'm going to enter the draft here right now. It is a $25 Bestball Mania 5 draft that is over 672,000 entrants. So a very small piece of the pie, but we're going to try to put together a draft tonight based on the schedules that were literally coming out as I was streaming last week. So we got a lot more information, maybe a little bit of change in strategy, some change in ADP, and some players that are getting drafted. So let me get it fired up. I'm going to go ahead and enter it. And if I have time, depending on where I'm picking, I'm good taking some random questions, dynasty questions, portfolio questions. Easier said than done, but this one's going to be firing up here in very short order, has only 2 more left to fill. So let me get this fired up and go back to the lobby. 1 more to fill. Here we go. Starting soon. And I am using Spike Week, so if anyone has used or seen Spike Week, this one is going to be drafted with a bunch of other stuff on the screen. So you'll see the Spike Week tool come up and be in there when I have different colors correlated. You'll see when it loads up here right now. Give it a second. It looks like I drew the 5 spot. Last week I drafted in the, I think a 4 spot was last week. So this week's going to be the 5 spot. And we'll be going in here about 30 seconds. So settle in, probably be here for an hour. Here's the Spike Week stuff. As you can see loaded on here, different colors. These players will correlate, so they'll light up with different colors. When I start drafting players, the correlation will be highlighted, etc. And I'm also going to put the draft board on another tab as well, so we can tab back and forth and everybody can see that. And we are good to go. So number 5 spot, I'm not really to a point yet where I am concerned about my ownership percentage or how many of certain stacks that I have or anything like that. I'm really just kind of looking at building teams out. The way that I've been playing it with the schedules is obviously looking for stacks, looking for week 17 correlation. I'm probably into a little more week 16 correlation as well. Haven't really built a ton of teams around that, but going to start with a Amon-Ra St. Brown build. So we're going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown here at the 105. And when I tab back, you will see these highlight as it updates. You will see some of the correlation players highlight when this refreshes. You'll see the Spike Week come in when I go to the Spike Week tab. Or when I go to the overlay with the Spike Week on it, you'll see that light up. So Amon-Ra, everybody's been building the Amon-Ra, Laporta, San Francisco, Detroit correlation stack. So we'll see where that actually ends up going. 106 took a while, took Justin Jefferson, 107, Bijan. So the first thing I typically do is I'm in there now looking at their week 17 matchup. And I don't want to do it too early, but obviously if you're drafting Lions and 49ers, there's a lot of them that go off the board in the first 5 rounds. So I'm already going in and starring the potential correlation there in week 17. So Detroit plays San Francisco. They have in week 16, Detroit has the Bears, another lot of set of players that you could take, a bunch of receivers from the Bears, Caleb Williams, a tight end. So there's a lot of correlation week 16 and week 17 with the Lions and with their opponents in both week 16 and week 17. So we're starting with Amon-Ra. Draft's been pretty straightforward thus far. Bunch of receivers go off the board. For me, there's been like a sweet spot of receivers inside the top 30-ish, top 32-ish. Then it feels like people are just starting to reach for a lot of receivers that they just have to take because they're receivers, but there's really not a lot else to pick unless you just want to start dipping into the innings eater running backs. See a bunch of people in the chat, didn't even acknowledge, but thank you for being here. Cole World, Dynasty Barry, Ty DeClaire, Cheeky Hobson, Josh McAtee, Mr. Padilla, Retired Ridley Truther, Blindles, what is good, my friend? All right, couple picks up. Ayuk's already gone. I'm probably just hammering wide receivers. I'm getting at least 4 in the first 6 rounds. And then it's a push and a pull. That's going to determine whether I'm going to need to take a 6 or 8 receiver build or a 7 receiver build. It'll just depend. And I'm doubting I'm going to get Deebo Samuel here, but we will see. I'm up in 3 picks. Deebo would be my pick if I'm drafting. There goes Saquon and Jonathan Taylor. So we're looking all right. One more pick. Let's see. They follow ADP. It won't be Deebo, and it's not Deebo. I have no Deebo. I have a couple other stacks with Detroit and San Fran, but let's roll with Deebo. So we'll go Deebo Samuel, Amon-Ra St. Brown to start it off. So I like that. Now, one thing I've seen a lot of people do in these drafts is they will look at that Amon-Ra and Deebo and say, I'm targeting Jared Goff and Brock Purdy. For me, I do not want, in a 1 QB league, I do not want both Brock Purdy and Jared Goff. So the beauty of this is now I have a receiver from both. I have the options to take a tight end from either team if I would like, if I want to have a third option, or I could opt to just wait, take another late receiver from either team if I wanted. It's easier to do with San Francisco. You could go Pearsall. He's in the 70s or late 60s in wide receiver ADP. Could go Jacob Cowing at the very end if you wanted to. Detroit, you could go Donovan Peoples-Jones, but otherwise, the good thing is I don't need Jared Goff and Brock Purdy. So I've now set myself up where I can probably wait and take either one and just kind of dare the room if they want to take them ahead of me. Because there's probably only going to be 2 other teams. I mean, if you're looking on this board right now, Ayuk went to the team at the 110 spot, and we'll see where Laporta goes. I'm fine taking Laporta if he falls to where I am. But if not, I'm probably just looking at another receiver. I don't have to force a Sam Laporta pick here. But in this slot, it's really easy to get Laporta because this is exactly where he goes. So we'll see. But the point of it is I don't have to take both Purdy and Goff. I can wait for the latest one. They both go maybe like a half a round or a round apart from each other. But there's only going to be 1 or 2 other teams that are even interested in taking Purdy and Goff. And that's something that I haven't talked about a lot. But you get in some of these rooms, and there's only about half this room are badge players on Underdog, which doesn't mean much. Obviously, I don't have one because I haven't played a lot of Underdog in the past. But a lot of teams are going to be interested in those quarterbacks because they're building different types of stacks. By the time it comes around to drafting Goff and Purdy, there's only going to be a couple teams that even want them. So I can push it. I see Danny in the chat. What's good, Danny? But the point is I can get probably pretty good value, and I'm going to take Laporta. Fell right in my lap. So let's roll with Laporta right past his ADP, which I use ADP, but I'm not going to follow ADP after you get past a certain range. So I'm going to draft Laporta here. It's kind of the dream start if you want to go with this, right? Amon-Ra, Deebo, Laporta. Now I've really probably blocked somebody out from really reaching on Goff or Purdy. So I can just sit back and wait and probably get them at least a round past where they typically go. So love this start. Bounce back to here real quick. Oh, yeah, I have to actually update this section. Sorry, still working out the kinks on the live, and I'm using StreamYard, not Ecamm, which is what we used the other night. It's a lot easier to roll there. So here we go. Here's an updated pool of what's available. Have those guys in the queue. Let me see if the spike week. There you go. Now you can see on the screen with the spike week, you can see my ownership percentage right here. So the only thing I have on tonight is my ownership percentage of these players. So I know it might be a little small unless you're watching it in full screen, but this percentage right here has their bye week, their matchups, which are both there because of spike week, and then it has my percentage owned in Bestball Mania 5. And if you see, go over here, Brock Purdy highlighted in yellow, Jared Goff highlighted in yellow. If you go to some of the other players, see if I can find one. George Kittle highlighted in yellow. So it's going to highlight a lot of the correlation plays. You can color code these and everything, but it's a pretty cool tool, meaning if you're just looking at the player pool, you're not going to miss where there might be an obvious pick that you're not catching because you're doing a couple drafts at a time. And I'm in like 15 slow drafts right now. So I always have to come back to this and just look at the board rather than just go in there and make the pick. Because when you're in that many, you forget which one you just picked in. You forget what you have built until you take a minute or two to study back and see what's on the board and what you already have. So we'll go back to the board, and we are on the turn, the 3-4 turn. Looking at the teams that took Ayuk, so they went Michael Pittman here. So it'll be interesting to see if they do anything else where they may be interested in one of my quarterbacks, but I'm guessing no. See a comment in here, AJ, does Waddle feel overvalued to any of you all in these drafts? Yes, but every receiver is overvalued. If you followed any of my dynasty work, when you're talking about just threshold receivers or innings eaters, like Waddle is certainly one of those. There's some contingent value with Waddle as well, right? There's a good offense. He's already proven what he could do as a rookie when there wasn't Tyreek around, but he's still productive when he's there. So I think he actually offers a different perspective in terms of upside versus what other receivers in the range do. But you could argue every receiver, if you've looked at a WAR graph before, every receiver like in this range, round 2 and beyond, they're all kind of just expected to give you the relative same production. So those are the innings eaters, usually like wide receiver 8 to 28, 30 range-ish. So I'm up in a couple picks. Let me start focusing. Otherwise, I'll just get away from myself. So here's where I'm probably looking another receiver because I did take Laporta. I'm definitely taking another receiver. This is the sweet spot. I was saying inside the top 30, 32-ish. Trying to build maybe not another stack or correlation, but I'm just going to pick a player that I think there are multiple outs for me to build later. And more importantly, a player that I don't necessarily have to commit to anything right now. So I'm targeting George Pickens. We will see if he goes. He did not go. That is who I want. I've been taking, and I'll get to it here after I make the pick, but I took George Pickens here. George Pickens, Steelers play in week 17. The Chiefs, they play the Ravens in week 16. There's a couple Chiefs receivers. If I'm in this spot, I'm probably able to get Xavier Worthy and or Marquise Brown coming back, which again gives me a whole other option. If Mahomes were to fall past ADP, which he probably won't, I could take Mahomes here. But I don't even have to think about Mahomes. One of the player that I've been drafting, there goes Mahomes, so that's gone. The player I've been drafting more in any of these formats, the one player that I think is going to have a ton of closing line value, and I'll talk about what that means here in a second, is Justin Fields. Put it on Twitter. I've talked about it in the Discord. I'm not even confident Justin Fields starts 6 games this year. But if he does, he's probably going to deliver in my quarterback spot more than every other quarterback that's going in that range. He's going to deliver more games that are meaningful heads up against Derek Carr, against Geno Smith, probably against Bryce Young and the like. But the other thing is, think about what would happen if Justin Fields, and because again, these Bestball Mania tournaments go until right up to the beginning of the season. What would happen if Justin Fields was named the starter on September 1st? Not a bandwagoner. Yes, I can be excited about Justin Fields putting up points in Arthur Smith's offense. Maybe not all his weapons, but Justin Fields, yes. And I am up. I am going to go Xavier Worthy with this pick. So I know he had the hamstring thing that came out today, but it makes sense taking Pickens. So now I have some Steelers-Chiefs correlation week 17. Again, not planned, but it just works perfectly. I drew a good spot to build the team this way. So now I have Worthy and Pickens. But back to Fields. If Fields was named a starter, I'm going to pose this question to the chat. If Fields was named the starter opening weekend, where would his ADP be? What quarterback would he go in? If he was starting from day one, would he get drafted ahead of Tua Tagovailoa? Yes or no? If he was named the starter from day one. Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence. Like, I think all of a sudden you're looking at Justin Fields, you're going, wow, people are taking him in round 8. They're taking him around where Jaden Daniels is going, where Caleb Williams is going. I'm not betting on that happening, but the point is, if I have a lot of early Justin Fields and you can literally get him in the last round or two, then I'm taking a bet on he may be just available at the end of the year. If I knew he was only going to start 6 games, I don't want to draft him really. But if I know he's available towards the end of the year, which makes more sense, they lose the draft pick value if he starts more than half the games. So it's reasonable to say, you know what, if they're kind of 50-50 on whether they're going to make the postseason or whatnot, they may give Fields a look. So that's the reason I'm taking him, just because there's a world where the profit you make on his closing line value is insanely high. Way higher than, I'll find a running back that's going down in these ranges. So I just took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in my last draft, 18th round. It's fine. Right now, he's the backup. The running back room is like 6 other guys behind him. None of them have ever done anything. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like, there's probably not a world where he's going to go from round 18 to round 6. There would have to be a catastrophic injury to Pacheco, and then also a team that says, you know what, we're just not going to do anything at running back, which is unlikely. So it just feels like the closing line value on Fields is so much higher, even than other quarterbacks. I mean, think of another average quarterback starter that could get injured. Try to find one that makes sense. Trevor Lawrence. All right, Trevor Lawrence gets injured preseason. He's going to miss 2/3 of the season. I don't know what that looks like, but let's just say it happens. Mac Jones isn't going in round 10. Mac Jones isn't going in round 9. He would get picked, but it would probably be like he's going in round 16, 15, 16, 17, 18, where Carr, Bryce Young, Geno Smith, all those guys go. So there's not a lot of gain there. So I think Fields is just one of the few players where I could go, if something broke his way, he's going up 10 rounds. So I'm taking as much Fields as I can. That was about a 5-minute diatribe on why Fields is a good pick. But I'm trying to get as much exposure as I can now, because I'm going to stop drafting him once we get to the preseason. Like, when you get to August, you're going to have much more information on how the Steelers feel on Fields and et cetera. So I'm probably not going to be drafting him as much then as I am now, because you can literally get him in the last round. So back to the board. I'm up in 3 picks. I have 4 receivers and a tight end. Not really worrying about quarterback. George Kittle just went. I believe George Kittle went. No, George Kittle's still on the board. What do you guys think? Pushing it too much to go George Kittle? It really, really blocks people out of going Purdy or Goff. Nobody would want Purdy and Goff. And the reason that I would consider doing it here, because I don't know if there's going to be a lot of teams with 4. But I think the other thing is I'm then committed. I'm only taking 2 tight ends. So I'm buying back a spot, probably going to be a running back, or I'm buying back an extra roster spot. So if Kittle's there, I think I'll take Kittle just to make it interesting. Yep, Brock Bowers went. So, okay, someone definitely needed Brock Bowers. So I'm going to roll George Kittle. Boom. So through 6, Amon-Ra, Debo, Laporta, Pickens, Worthy, George Kittle. So I will not be taking any more players from the San Fran Detroit game. I have 4. I don't really want to take one unless it's at the very, very end, but I probably opt for something else. I have enough exposure to that game. Once I add a quarterback, I'll have 5 players from that game. So we're going to start focusing elsewhere. I did see a comment in the chat earlier. Let me scroll up and see if I can find it. Not a bandwagoner. Just built the nastiest Chicago, Seattle, Minnesota, Green Bay playoff stick. Yeah, the schedule that is great. Let me hide that comment. The schedule that is great is Seattle. They have Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago in week 15, 16, and 17. And there's so many options in all 3 of those offenses between Hawkinson, Addison. Obviously, Jefferson, you got to get him early. But Odunze, Allen, DJ Moore, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, Dontavian Wicks. There's so many options on those teams that you're going to naturally just probably have a dozen shots at getting some correlation in the playoffs. So starting with Seattle guys, and you can even get the Seattle guys late, so you don't even have to commit to the Seattle guys right away. But if you end up with a DK Metcalf start and then JSN is there, like, there's a chance where you can build really nice combos between those 4 teams. Dynasty Barry. Now you have to ask yourself, Scott, how will this roster be unique when this game 17 you will be built around the hits? Yeah. I'm curious how many teams will have all 4 of these. So I probably have to be finding some other ways to separate myself. So what do you guys think? What would be a way to do that? Because there's going to be other teams. There may not be many that have all 4 of these, but there's going to be many that have 2 or 3 pieces with one of the quarterbacks in this stack. So what do you guys think? What would be the play? Because I think you can go many ways, and probably the way that might be the best hasn't even emerged yet. Checking running backs. We really are at kind of a running backs innings eating zone. So I may push it one more pick with running back, lock a receiver down because I don't have to take my quarterback for at least 2 more rounds. So we'll see. Jordan Addison goes. Lad McConkey goes. So I am on the clock. Could go a running back. To me, that there's already been kind of a cutoff at running back. DeAndre Swift is one I haven't got a lot of. And there's easy correlation with Swift. But the others, I'm kind of good fading at this point. I'm just going to hit another receiver. I'm going to kind of take my own advice. I'm going to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba. So just continue the wide receiver hit. It's an AFC West correlation pick with the Niners. I saw Ty mention that, but I do like getting divisional games multiple times. So you'll get a couple Seattle, San Francisco games as well. So there you go. And looking at Seattle's schedule, I already talked about it. Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago. And they do play Detroit in week 4. So we definitely have some game correlation as well. Danny, if you wanted to go 3 QB build based on around Seattle, Chicago, Minnesota, Green Bay, would you be taking Geno or Howe at round 18? I haven't taken any Howe, but I've talked about taking some Howe. What do you guys think about Howe? Doesn't Howe kind of feel like a very poor version of Fields? I think the difference is Seattle's made it clear that there's not a competition, that Geno Smith will be the starter and that they want him to be the starter, whereas we're not like entirely sure what Pittsburgh wants. We assume they want Russell Wilson. And I like Howe a lot too. I think Howe's a guy in Dynasty I've been trying to get a ton of. I mentioned it the other day when I was on the show with Justin Boone on the Score, that Howe's the guy I've been trying to get as much as I could, but he's not going to start. It's not a competition. Like we think, oh, Sam Howell, he's a good backup, etc., but he doesn't have a chance to start. Geno's going to get a really long leash because they paid him already, and they've kind of already been committed to trying to make that work for another year, you know? So Howell's more of a guy you maybe draft later in the year because you're still taking shots on how you're going to get him in the last round. Whereas if there's anything positive about Fields, he may not go up to round 10, but he's not going to go round 18. He's not going to go around 17. He's probably going to go around 15, 16, like a little higher than those quarterbacks that we know are replacement level. So that's kind of the fear with Fields. If you don't take him now, you're not getting as good a value if there is anything like that. Whereas Howe, he's not going to move up that high, even though he does present a lot of upside if he is starting, as we saw last year. So that was going to be my next pick. Unfortunately, just got taken. I guess the team on the end. And I think that's Josh. Yeah, that's Josh. Bo knows 34. So Josh jumped in here. Josh, give yourself away in the chat, because I'm pretty sure that's you taking my Jalen Warren, Rashee Rice. I would have taken Jalen Warren 100%. And there's still a bunch of running backs on the board. So probably look at Najee Harris here if I don't get sniped. I prefer Warren, but definitely need a couple running backs. I got to start firing them up. Yeah, there he is. There he is. I know that Bo knows 34. So Josh is here. Josh is in the 12 spot. So you knew I would take Jalen Warren, Josh? You just know it? I assume you knew based on where I was heading with this team. Either way, I have a lot more Warren than I do Najee, but willing to go Najee here. If not, probably go just don't have a lot of Zamir White. Have a ton of the rookie running backs that are in the next tier. Trey Benson, Blake Corum are my 2 highest rostered running backs at this point. I think they just continue to move up. Yeah, Josh has the Warren, Rashee Rice, Kelsey build. There goes Ramondre. So I'll take Najee Harris. So good luck, Josh. We got some competing Chiefs Steelers going. So through 7 rounds, 2 tight ends. So I'm done at tight end. It's going to be a 2 tight end build. We have 5 receivers and 1 running back. Yeah, let me look real quick. Yeah, we still have Dak, Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Tua Tagovailoa, and Trevor Lawrence to go before we get to Jared Goff. Brock Purdy already got picked, I believe. So, yeah, we're in on Goff, but I can't really imagine anybody else really wants Goff. So that's going to be my target, probably 2 more rounds. Hopefully nobody in here decides to play, have some fun with me during this draft and crush my soul by taking that Jared Goff. But not sweating it if we do. We have other ways that we can build out with the JSN pick. We still have options to go from there. So the running backs are flying off the board. This is what I tweeted a couple weeks ago with the running back, kind of getting your running backs and being done. That's one of my theories early in these drafts is I'm not really taking running backs past the top 50. Now, if that's ADP, sure. But I would recommend you just kind of rank your own running backs, and you're probably going to get to a point 40 to 50 where you go, I really don't want the others, because you start questioning, okay, is this guy even going to have a role? A lot of the ones inside the top 50-ish are ones where you say at least they have a 40% role in a 60-40 committee. All right, I am up. I think I kind of want to go with the AFC West a little bit here. I can continue to take James Conner, looking at the Seattle, Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago. I have a ton of Trey Benson, like 40% Trey Benson. So I'm going to go James Conner, try to soak up some early touches. Now with James Conner and Najee, I do think I probably need to build this definitely with 6 running backs. And I'm probably going to take some different style running backs later. Probably not going to continue to hammer like Gus Edwards and Devin Singletary, Zeke Elliott. Like I may mix in Zach Charbonnet is one that I don't have a lot of. That what if we're wrong on Zach Charbonnet? And he's the version of what we're hoping that some of these guys that go 2 rounds higher than him. Why can't he be Jaylen Warren? You know, why can't he be Tajay Spears? So Charbonnet is one that I'm going to start that I don't have a lot of. Blindles on the treadmill trying to get the pre-stream jitters out. Let's see. What else do we got going here? Any interesting builds? What you guys got questions-wise? What do you think so far? Halfway home. 5 receivers, 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. How would you grade it? Curious if Dynasty Barry, if you think this is going to be a team that is duplicated a lot. Because I'm still trying to figure out what other angles I want to go. We're starting to get to the point where I'm looking at Arizona. I'm looking at Seattle. Arizona's week 15, 16, 17. New England, Carolina, and the Rams. Definitely options with those teams. New England is a great team that if you want to stack late with New England, there's a ton of receivers. 3 receivers, a tight end, a quarterback from New England. If you want to take those. So New England's an easy one if you have playoff matchups. They play in week 16 and 17, Buffalo and the Chargers. Chargers in New England is interesting. What's everybody think about stacking Chargers New England? I haven't built one like that, but you can literally get all of their players outside of the top 7 rounds. Not a bandwagon. I think the 2 elite tight end is very underrated this year. In my opinion, this is a nice team. Appreciate it. Yeah. Anybody build a Chargers New England team yet? Packed on a bunch of late receivers, hammered a lot of non-correlating running backs early. Interesting build, probably a 9 receiver build if you do that, depending on who you take early, but just a lot of options. And I think that's a key thing to do is you don't have to decide your correlation and your stacking early on. You don't have to pick in round 1 and round 2 and go, I have the draft to go this way. I have to see the draft flow with these players. Like I need these players to fall to me. You can wait. You can get 4 or 5 picks under your belt and then go, okay, I can assess where I go from here. I didn't do that. I started right with the San Fran Detroit stack from the get-go. It just played perfectly. But if I didn't have that, if you're in the 10 spot or the 9 spot Where if you want to go receiver, you're probably looking at taking Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, one of those three. But you don't even know what receiver is going to come back to you. And you may have to reach on Brandon Ayuk or Chris Olave. So you just don't know what stacks you're building until you get there. So I am up. Probably going to hit another running back here. I'm looking at Chase Brown and Tajay Spears. Keeping an eye on my QBs. Goff is close. You guys think I can push it one more round with Goff? I don't think I need Goff. I think I'm going to gamble and go with a running back here. I'm going to go with Tajay Spears. Gives me a little juice and a little upside. We got Cincinnati, Indy, and Jacksonville week 15, 16, and 17 for the Titans. So I passed on Goff. Risky, but I should be able to get Goff with my pick coming back. I can't imagine anybody on this side of the board wants Jared Goff. Everybody has a quarterback already. One team has two. So I just can't imagine any of these teams taking Goff unless they're watching and they say, I'm just taking Jared Goff just to get a reaction, which is possible. It's always the risk of doing live streaming with draft. Yeah. Rational being should take Goff but me, 100%. Ty, what you got here? I didn't see the other comment. May pop Douglas late? Yeah. I mean, Polk, Pop Douglas, Javon Baker all go outside the top 70 receivers. May you can get in the last two rounds. Then you roll the bring back. You can get Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, DJ Chark. You can get all of those guys. You can get the tight ends from the Chargers. They don't even get drafted. You can get Hunter Henry. You can get any running back other than Ramondre Stevenson outside of the top 35. So if you like Vidal and Antonio Gibson, you can do that. Like you can do a lot of Chargers Patriots stack. And what if that somehow turns into a game that nobody was on? Danny, that was a real ugly, awful feeling. Yeah, Danny created a Carolina Tampa Bay just mega stack. Too many. I think you had what, 7 players from the Carolina Tampa Bay game, Danny? Yeah. Too many. I'm probably at 5 at most in one game. I don't want to be doing any of these 7 or 8 from one team or from one game. It's just not going to work. All right, so Chase Brown, Justin Herbert, Devin Singletary, and Jacoby Myers is the pick. So perfect. Jared Goff fell right in my lap, so we will lock in Jared Goff. So that rounds out nicely. We are done with Detroit, San Francisco, Goff, Laporta, Amon-Ra, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle. So 5 Niners and Lions with this stack. So given that I have Jared Goff, Goff was the one I ended up getting. I'm going to look at Chicago in week 16 and try to capture maybe a little bit of the Chicago offense, but there's not a lot of options to go with Chicago, given that their 3 receivers already go and I'm not taking a tight end. So that's out. I was just looking at the Chicago options and there really isn't any. So that's one of the downsides of taking Kittle and Laporta is I could easily say, you know what, I'll get some exposure to that week 16 game with Goff. Because given the payouts in week 17, if you can just get to week 17 with a team or two, you're going to be in good shape. You're going to win money. But here, since I already have 2 tight ends, Cole Kmet is out. Not that I'm super high on Cole Kmet, but he's out. So there's no option to really stack the Bears anymore. I could go to week 15 with Detroit. Buffalo. There's options with Buffalo that you could take. But again, they've already gone. Shakir, Samuel, and Keon Coleman are already gone. So unless I'm reaching somewhere else, they have too many receivers right now to say who that 4th is. So I'm probably not touching any Bills. So we're probably dead with week 16 with Goff. With week 15, Buffalo, Chicago, 15, 16. Yeah, we're pretty much done. So let's look at some of the others. We got Tennessee, Indy, Jacksonville, Cincinnati in the playoffs. Seattle. Can always go back to Minnesota and Green Bay. There's still some options available there. I only do have 3 running backs at this point, so I'm probably going to look at a 4th. Charbonnet, if he falls, that will probably be my pick. I don't know if he'll get here, but that's who I'm looking for. Charbonnet, and then the 2 Bears running backs I could take late. Thank you, Dynasty Barry. Roshan, and I don't mind Khalil Herbert either. A lot of people think he could get traded. If he doesn't, I still like him as the favorite to win the backup job for the Bears. But if he doesn't, there could be some closing line value on Khalil Herbert too if he goes somewhere else. One of these backfields, like I mentioned earlier, if like Pacheco were to get injured, that's probably a team that would go, can we get a cheap running back? Because we're going to need somebody. So yeah, Roschon and Khalil Herbert are both options if you want to get a late stack with the Bears. And knowing that I already have JSN on this team and the week 16 with Goff, that'll probably be a target. So I'm actually going to go through and highlight Roschon and Khalil Herbert. Jalen Polk goes. Jahan Dotson goes. And I am up next. And it went Pat Freiermuth. So I am going to lock in, I think, only my second share of Zach Charbonnet. So we're in on Zach Charbonnet. That is my fourth running back. Now I can afford to take 2 later running back shots. And I wanted to talk about this on this stream because it's something that we talked about earlier today in the Discord. A lot of people I see are drafting these random running backs late. Meaning you'll see somebody scroll all the way down and they'll go, oh, I'm going to take Dylan Lobb, or I'm going to take insert whoever you think could be a sleeper. Blake Watson I've seen drafted, Deuce Vaughn, Evan Hall. I took Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But generally I'm not wanting to fish in those running back waters quite yet. Because like, what's the best scenario for Dylan Lobb? Even if they were to cut a running back, let's say they cut Alexander Madison. You're still looking at Dylan Lobb going where? Round 14, 15? He's not going to move up to a point where you go, all right, that value that I got him in round 17 or 18 is huge compared to what he's going to today. And he's probably not the type of running back where you say is just going to take the backfield. So it just feels like people trying to guess who the RB2 is going to be when there's 3 guys battling for it doesn't make sense. Meaning like Denver's probably going to target the running back a lot, but they have McLaughlin, they have Pirine still, they drafted Estime. It's probably indictment on Javonte Williams going so high, but the point is they're probably not going to roll out less than 3 running backs. So why guess on Audric Estime, for instance, when probably the only thing that would raise his value would be Javonte getting injured or something happening to Javonte where Estime basically takes his role. But he's not going to take over like more work because Samaje Perine gets cut. He's probably still not going to move up past round 16, 17. So it just doesn't make sense to draft him now because there's also a chance where he's on the practice squad. So a lot of talking from me, but I am up. I have 5 receivers. I'm going back to receiver here. And I did not get sniped. So I am going to go back to old reliable Roman Wilson. Given that I have a couple Steelers, I have 3 Steelers now, which means where I'm going with my last pick. And we'll see. Should I make this a 3 QB build or should I make it a 2 QB build? What do you think? Or should I fade the Justin Fields and just stick with the value that I've gotten on the Steelers already? Any thoughts? Fields a bad stack, given that I have 2 Pittsburgh receivers already? Too much exposure to the Steelers offense? Got some comments in here. Let me catch up. Oh, that's a comment for Shane. I see Shane, my buddy, in there. Shane, what's good, man? Thank you for coming in here and supporting me. It's tough to carry these streams when you're literally just talking to yourself. And anybody that's drafted these, there's a lot of downtime when you're not picking. You're just kind of going through and looking at the board and highlighting players. It's tough to just talk through the entire draft. But if you guys got any questions or anything non-related to this draft, let me know. Any dynasty questions, theory questions, try to get to those where I can. Khalil Herbert is the best runner on the Bears. Yeah, I agree. I would prefer Herbert over Roschon, but I think you could justify taking both. Like I have both of them highlighted. I think you could justify taking both just with the thought of if there's something that breaks and they do trade Khalil Herbert, you've kind of doubled down. You're going to get really good value on both if that happens. And if it doesn't, there's still a world where both of them are involved. I mean, the starter is DeAndre Swift. We've seen him in the past. So that is probably one of the few backfields where I would be fine drafting both of those because there's not a 4th player that's probably going to get into the way. So I think there's some outs there that don't exist with some of these other backfields. Yeah, Dynasty Barry, 3 QB build with Fields. Yep. I can afford to do the 3 QB build because I do have a 2 tight end build going. So I typically do not like to do 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends. I've done some, but I've kind of shied away doing that. And given that I have the 2 tight ends here, I can afford the 3rd QB. So we'll highlight Fields. Josh worries me in this draft, though. Josh worries me just a little bit. But looking at Josh's team, I don't know if Josh is probably going to be interested in sniping my Fields, but he certainly knows all about my Fields. Actually, he has 3 quarterbacks. Never mind. Didn't even see Josh had taken his 3rd QB. So that's good. That's probably the one person that, knowing how he's built, that would be interested in taking Fields in the last round. But good to see that he already has 3. So no Fields for you. Thank you, Josh. Scott, do you worry or dislike going QB running back stack with a rushing QB? JT? A little bit. I mean, it's I think a little bit overblown, but I do think it's probably a fair question to say if there's just enough taken away on the ground and there's just enough taken away in terms of targeting the running backs, then yeah, maybe there's a tiebreaker. I probably wouldn't want to stack Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. I probably wouldn't want to stack Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. But you could also argue in the right game script where, again, you're trying to win a week 17 matchup, where you're trying to win a single matchup. There's a world where Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor score 3 rushing touchdowns each, or JT goes for 2 and Richardson goes for 2. So, I mean, there's still a world where that ends up working out. So I am up next, and I'm going to probably hit another running back if he falls. This is a player that I don't have a lot of exposure to, and I do have some correlation with in week 16 if he doesn't get picked. We will see. But Ty Chandler is the one I'm highlighting next on my list. I have 0 Ty Chandler, and I need another running back. So I love the Ty Chandler, especially given that I have the Seattle players already. So boom, Ty Chandler on a team that has week 16 against Detroit and week 17 against the Seahawks. So some more correlation built into my team. 6 receivers thus far, 5 running backs, 1 quarterback, 2 tight ends. If I'm going 3 QBs, I'm probably looking at trying to go somewhere different with my QB3. I'm not trying to capture like Geno Smith or probably here's what I'm thinking. What does everybody think about the Tajay Spears, Will Levis stack? If I take Will Levis and Justin Fields, I have 0 Will Levis, and I want to build a couple Titans stacks because the Titans have the Jaguars. You can easily build some stacks with those 2 teams, but I have 0 Will Levis. Kind of feels like this is a Will Levis team, kind of like the Will Levis, Tajay Spears combo. What's everybody think? Titan stack, they're kind of like building the Chargers Patriots stack. No one's super excited, but what if we're wrong? What if that's one of those offenses where you look up and go, man, we were wrong about the Titans. They're a top 10 offense. They're top 5 in neutral pass rate. And Will Levis is probably turning the ball over and making mistakes, but it doesn't matter because he's scoring a lot of fantasy points. Put your blue jeans on. There we go. There we go. Interesting, Josh. You'd hold off on Levis without a wide receiver. I could go wide receiver, though. I got one more wide receiver spot. I could go Tyler Boyd. Could go Tyler Boyd. Could go Will Levis with Tajay Spears. Well, I got 4 picks left, and I'm only taking one more running back, so I got to look and see if this is where I don't need to take the Bear running back here, so I can pass on the Bears running back. Don't care about ADP. It's really about just formulating a plan here. So if I'm going to go one more running back, one more wide receiver, Will Levis and Justin Fields, I'm going to have to take – I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right here. I'm going Will Levis. Done. Wanted a Will Levis. Maybe it's a little early, but I'm taking Will Levis with that pick. Plan is to take a Bears running back, Tyler Boyd, and Justin Fields to round out this draft. And I should be able to get all 3 based on where things are laying right now. So we'll end up with a 3 quarterback and 6 running back, 7 receiver, 2 tight end build. And no, I'm not drafting Treylon Burks. Yep, 100%. Levis belongs on a 3 QB build. That's why I think the Levis Fields in the last couple rounds is perfect. And no, Treylon Burks is not on the radar. Although I did see those comments from DeAndre Hopkins, and they were completely blown out of proportion, apparently. Jacob, what's good, Jacob? I've been punting tight end most often, going with some Musgrave Kraft builds late. What's everybody think about the Tucker Kraft news that he's not going to be ready till camp? Because Musgrave still hangs out at like tight end 20, but I got a feeling that that's about to slowly rise. Don't you guys think? Next couple weeks, we're going to see Musgrave jump up ahead of like Benson Knott, ahead of even the Hunter Henrys and the guys that go right in that range. I think he's going to be clearly above them. Might pass Pat Freiermuth. But I think definitely Musgrave's going to rise here in the next, I don't know, month or so, unless we get some other news on Tucker Kraft. Nigel, what's good, man? Heard you on Justin Boone's channel. Probably my favorite show I've listened to. I really appreciate your perspective on fantasy and dynasty. Thank you, man. Check out our community if you're not familiar with it. Patreon.com/ALLGAS, Destination Devi. Awesome community. We literally do what we're doing on this stream every day. Someone's doing an underdog draft, and there's going to be a ton of them in the Discord throughout the summer. So if you're interested, like it's going to be every night, there's going to be a live draft. I'm just going to do them here, every week or every other week. But over there's somebody doing a draft all the time, either Ray or Josh or myself, our new coach from Bestball Night School. If you haven't checked out that pod on the DD feed, Bestball Night School, good stuff. Gene and Ike, they're doing underdog drafts. So they're constant. So if you're interested in this, check it out. All right, Khalil Herbert or Roshan? I got to make the pick. You guys make it for me. Khalil or Roshan? I got the Seattle correlation already. I got 15 seconds. If not, I'm probably going to lean. Oh, man. I'm going to lean Khalil Herbert. Done. So done at running back room. Najee Harris, James Conner, Tajay Spears, Zach Charbonnet, Ty Chandler, and Khalil Herbert. 6 running back build. 1 more receiver. I've already kind of mapped it out what it's going to be. Josh, thank you. You left Herbert for me. Yeah, you could have taken him. What's everybody think on the build? Too much? This team's going to sink or swim on that Detroit and San Fran game. But I think I built in enough with a couple other games, notably the Tennessee game, the Seattle game. I think I built in enough there where I have 3 or 4 pieces of a couple different games. So if that is like the it game or two, I think it's live. But others I know would say there's too much high-end exposure to the Detroit-San Fran game for that to be a winner. It might be able to get there, but I'm curious if you guys think there's too much. David, you kind of got away with 5 running backs. Yeah, I could have. I guess when I take 5 receivers in the first 7 rounds or 8 rounds in this case, no, 7 rounds, I'm looking at that as I've spent 90% of my budget already. And I'm banking on, instead of kind of just going with 8 receivers because that's what I would typically do in a 2 QB build, I'm willing to take the extra running back. But I agree with you. I think you could argue that I could have taken 1 less running back, maybe waited a little bit longer on taking that 5th receiver and not taking like JSN. But what else would you have done? I'm curious. Would you have just taken another receiver, tried to find correlation somewhere else? I know you wanted 1 more piece of Chicago, Seattle. Yeah, I mean, I got that with Herbert. So, I mean, I got what I wanted at that. I got Charbonnet, I got JSN, I got Khalil Herbert. So I'm going to roll with, this is where I am going to go with the Justin Fields pick. And I did get sniped on Tyler Boyd last round. I didn't even notice that. So now I got to find another random receiver. Let's see if we can find some correlation. So we got 6 receivers, need a 7th. Got too much exposure to Pittsburgh already. Seattle. Tennessee's got Indy in week 16. That's probably out. This is honestly, if I went back to Spike Week, I'd probably have an easier shot. Any ideas on last round receivers I could take here? What do you guys think? Based on what I have already. Could go. Just trying to find something. I'm probably not going to find anything in week 17. Ooh, Parker Washington. No, good on Parker Washington. See what else we can maybe drum up. I don't mind going down a little bit of ways here to try to find something. Be unique. Come on, Barry. You see the board. What do you think? What do you think I should do? Because I'm willing to just kind of go random with somebody. Some correlation somewhere. I mean, I could find some correlation with, I don't know, I could go to Tennessee and Cincy. I could go Andre Yoshivas. That's not a bad one. Deep Chiefs receiver, there's not really any. Couple guys sitting there, they just don't really work out with what I have. I mean, A.T. Perry's the one I've been taking, but I don't really have any correlation with A.T. Perry. Yeah, Yoshivas is an interesting one. I mean, I am a Bengals fan. It's probably one I won't take much, but I do know I'm fairly certain that, and I'm going to put Yoshivas in there just for the Titans correlation in the playoffs. But I'm fairly certain with Yoshivas, he even said it the other day, he's not going to play in the slot. But he is the T. Higgins replacement. It's not Jermaine Burton. So I'm going to go Yoshi with my 7th receiver. And that's the team. So a 3-6-7-2 build with the team being, let me scroll up so everybody can see it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Sam Laporta, George Pickens, Xavier Worthy, George Kittle, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Najee Harris, James Conner, Tajay Spears, Jared Goff, Zach Charbonnet, Roman Wilson, Ty Chandler, Will Levis, Khalil Herbert, Justin Fields, and Andre Yoshivas. There's my narrative. Yep, I was saying Yoshivas is the T. Higgins replacement. Burton will run in the slot, and Jamar Chase will play in the slot probably at least half the time. So if there is a Higgins holdout or / injury, it will be Yoshivas. Cole World, also a Yoshi fan. Barry, 1.5 million. We will see. You said that last week. This team I definitely like better than last week, probably because I was a little more comfortable doing the live draft board on here. Ty DeClaire with the money bags. Thank you. Josh, double dipped on tight end bye weeks. Yeah, I didn't even talk bye weeks. Again, there's so much to fumble here. I did get Goff and Levis on the same bye, but you definitely don't want to go 2 tight ends or 2 quarterback builds with the same bye week. But Josh, thank you for drafting. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Check out all the content, obviously, on this channel, on the pod feed. And if you're interested in the community, hop on in, destinationdevy.com or patreon.com/ALLGAS. So there will be a recorded show I'm going to go through next week, all of my exposure through probably 30 BBM drafts and just talk through mistakes or things where I go, wow, I'm a little biased with that type of build, or I'm a little biased in this value range, and I'm completely ignoring this value range. And you'll probably notice a theme because I've already started noticing a theme looking through all my completed drafts. So thank you all for being here. Next week, there will be a recorded show, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks with a live draft. Be chill, everybody.